well. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm thrilled to have Miss Molly Dunlap from Barker Adoptions, and she is going to talk about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on domestic and international adoptions. I know many families who were in process or going through their adoption, actively going through the process of receiving their child experience some disruption. And so I'm super excited that we have an expert here who can talk all about what's happened, what we can expect for the future. And for those who are thinking about adoption and want to pursue that in the future, some things that they can be doing right now while they are either teleworking or perhaps while things have slowed down to increase their chances of being able to take home that forever child. So welcome, Miss Molly Dunlap from Barker Adoption.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this with you.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's get started. Tell me what's going on with adoption and with the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, great question. So it definitely is affecting some things while some things are staying the same. So we are transitioning to a lot of telework with our clients. So we are doing all of our trainings are online through video. We're doing a lot of our home study meetings through video, as well as post-adoption services, counseling as well. But then there are some things that are in limbo with this pandemic. So it's affecting visits with either your child or with birth parents. Those might be on hold. It's affecting placements. Those might also be on hold where your child comes to live with you. Some finalizations are still happening. Some courts are allowing to do it over video, which is pretty awesome. But in some states, that's not allowed. So it's kind of ever evolving as we get more and more information about this pandemic.
Okay, so some things are on hold. Some things are taking place. Are any states, I know, given the orders to stay separated, are adoptive parents still being unified with their intended children, or has that just kind of shut down completely? Because I would imagine that there's still a lot of children that are in need of homes at this point.
Definitely a lot of children still in need. It really depends. With some children, we're still able to do finalization. So that's at the end of the adoption process where everything becomes legal. But with placements, a lot of it is put on hold. So they're doing oftentimes visits over video call before we're allowed to do placement. Okay. I know that they're doing that a lot, especially in our older child program where the children are in foster care. They'll have video calls and things with the child that they're matched with and the foster family, as well as sometimes with birth parents in our infant program. And then even in our international programs too, with, foster families in different countries and with the children, there's video calls. But for a lot of placements, it's really put on hold right now until people are allowed to travel and allowed to be in contact.
So tell me, have you seen a greater need for foster parenting or for adoptions for children during this crisis than usual? Because I would imagine there are a lot of people who, who may have been at that point of not knowing if they were able to parent, and this stressor may have pushed some people over to the edge where they just, decided that they were not able to provide the best, most stable home for a child. What have you seen in that regard?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, in general, the need is always so great. and more children are coming into care. We haven't seen, a spike in numbers yet in children coming into foster care. Neither we haven't seen a spike in birth mothers we're working with either in the infant program. However, I mean, that might happen in the next few weeks, in the next months to come. We're really not sure, just because, different things are happening every day.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for people you've already talked about the fact that for people who are already in process, you are doing some visits by phone, but nothing really is taking place in person.
Correct.
What about the people who are interested in thinking about adoption? What are some things that they can start to do right now? And tell me if there are different things now because of this crisis that families are going to have to do, or that are going to be expected than prior to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of the initial processes are the same, but through video. So we have information meetings every month. So we're now just doing that over Zoom video. And then our trainings, we're still doing them like we typically do for our older child program, as well as infant and international. We're just doing those over video. And then the application is online. And then after that, a lot of the paperwork is online. So actually, since some people have more time at home, it might be a little easier to get some of that paperwork done that people tend to put off, which I understand. And then we're also doing intake meetings, which are in the beginning via video as well. So a lot of that is different in the sense that it's on video, but we're still moving things forward with the same pace that we typically do.
So, and actually that brings me to an interesting point. I know that these intake meetings are required, and they're now on video. In the past, was it something that people were only able to attend in person, or has it always been that these are video?
Yeah, so if they live in the DMV, then it's always in person. They come into our office. But if they live different places throughout the US, which we're able to work with families in our international programs all throughout the US, then it's typically a video or a call for the intake.
Okay, so that may be a new change and
definitely
improvement for people who even live local, where they would be able to attend even if they're not able to drive.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So tell me about the whole adoption process. And let's start from the beginning, because there may be people who have the time now to sit and think about, what that would involve if they would want to pursue adoption. Take me from beginning to end, tell me about the length of time and the cost. And I'm interested in learning about public adoption or foster care, private adoption, domestically, and private international adoption.
Okay. That's a lot of questions in one. So I will just start from the beginning.
Get it all in there.
I can do it. So the process, the fees, the timeframes are different for each program, but I can do a general overview and then go into each program. So what you're going to do in the beginning for each program is you're going to go through a training. Typically, if you're wanting to adopt an older child from foster care, you'll go through what's called PRIDE training, which is a nationally recognized training for 27 hours. Or if you're wanting to adopt through our infant or international program, it's a one-day training.
The 27 hours, is that something that is moderated, or is that something that you could just kind of do on your own?
So we are doing all of that training through video right now. And it occurs on 4 Saturdays.
No, but what I mean is there a proctor there, or is it something that you on your own, like there's a recorded video that you can?
No, typically there's a proctor, and that's the same if you go through most agencies or through your county. And sometimes they'll give, online homework, but for the most part, it's in person.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So after that training, you apply, and then you have an intake meeting, like I was talking a little bit about before. And then after this intake meeting with your social workers, then you go through your paperwork and home study process. So a lot of the paperwork can be done at home. And typically it's all online. The home study process, so we're doing a lot of those right now videos. However, to be home study approved right now, you still have to do that in person. So a lot of that's kind of where people are getting put on hold in this process right now if they're waiting to be home study approved. But we are conducting a lot of those meetings over video, which is good. So after your home study improved, you're in the search and match phase, which looks different for each program. You know, if you're waiting in an older child program of children in foster care, then typically the agency would be contacting different caseworkers. Whereas if you're in an infant program, you would be seen by different birth mothers and birth fathers. And then in different international programs, sometimes your local agency makes the match and sometimes the country makes the match.
Now, can we back up? Because
Sure.
The domestic program,
Mm-hmm.
the people who are looking at infant adoption, and they could, their information is viewed by birth mothers and birth fathers. Is that viewed virtually, or is it a hard book that people actually get and look through?
More and more times now it's virtually. There's different websites and things that we utilize. I know we use Parent Finder a lot. So that we can show different birth mothers and birth fathers. Their book is what it's called, but it's online.
Got it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. That was a good question. So after a match is made with the child, depending on which program, in our older child program, you have to have a few visits with your child before placement. In our infant program, oftentimes you may be placed right after a mother gave birth or at the end of her pregnancy. And then there's a revocation period with infant, which is the amount of time that a birth mother has to change her mind and decide to parent, and that it differs in each state.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this. So I know a number of people who have entered into the adoption space really with the hope of adopting and bringing home and raising a child.
Mm-hmm.
These were people that entered the adoption space through foster care, where I know that the goal is to reunify
Mm-hmm.
birth parent. And I know 3 people who have actually, started the process, taken home a child, and then that child, actually, I know 5, thinking about it, and the child has been reunified with the birth parent, which, was really almost soul crushing to the people. And I know the goal is always, at least for foster care, to reunite families with birth parents or children with birth parents. What do you say to people to prevent them from going through that? Because that's just not something everybody can handle.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how do people not enter into a situation where this child that they, have really just taken into their home and their heart is then removed?
Yeah, great question. So it's different if you're going through your county and you're fostering first versus going through a private adoption agency. So you're correct. If you're going through your county, oftentimes a child that may be placed with you might still be able to reunify with birth parents or birth family. Whereas if you go through a private agency like us, we are only searching for children in foster care who are legally eligible for adoption. So the parental rights have been terminated or relinquished. So there's not a chance for reunification anymore. And then in our infant program, what we do is we utilize something called Cradle Care during the revocation period. So we have licensed foster families who work with us, and they take care of the baby just during the revocation period. to kind of lessen the hurt that could come if the birth parent does decide to parent and to have their child. So we kind of put things in place that will lessen it, but it still could happen. We also typically, in infant, don't like to match adoptive parents with their child until the end of the pregnancy or right after the mother has given birth. Because we see typically if a mother is making a birth plan in the first or second trimester, oftentimes she may change her mind and decide to parent, which is, we definitely encourage her to do what is best for her and her family, but that's why we try not to make the match until kind of the very end.
So what I'm hearing is you all do your best to try and protect families from that hurt, but is this something that families also need to be mindful of as they're going into the process? Because you all are a very well-respected, national, internationally operating adoption agency.
Oh,
but
thank you.
Yeah, I have tremendous respect and regard for Barker, but there are a lot of adoption agencies out here. And, everybody may not give that same level of protection. So
yes,
you say to the family that says we absolutely want to adopt, what do we need to go? What do we need? What information do we need to be armed with so that when we go into our adoption agency that's down the street, we let them know we're willing to do this, we're unwilling to do that, so that we're protected? Because often people don't know what they don't know. Like they don't even know that to ask the question, can this child be taken from me?
Right.
So what do they go in with?
So I think a couple of things you want to look for are they placing or are they matching you with a birth mother in her first or second trimester?
Okay, so no first or second trimester.
I mean, it can work out. It's just it can be less likely, Well,
so this is, we can't speak on every situation, but general guidelines, this is what we want to share with our families.
I think another big thing is you want to be wary of agencies that are asking you to pay big upfront costs instead of costs in increments.
So tell me what that means.
So sometimes agencies will ask prospective adoptive parents to pay big upfront costs in there, to pay the bulk of the cost in just the first couple of months versus spreading it out throughout home study and throughout matching and placement, and paying for a cost once a service is rendered, which is what you should do, versus paying a big chunk in the beginning, which agencies shouldn't be asking people to do, and it's not feasible.
And what about the agencies that will connect people with the birth parent? Because I have heard really devastating stories about people being asked to pay for phone bills and just other expenses. And then,
yes.
And the birth mother, kind of changes her mind. And not that, like, you're not buying a baby, but I never really understood that dynamic. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, great question. So that's another thing people should be wary of. And that happens often if people are matched in the beginning of a mother's pregnancy. And if there are different state regulations throughout the country of, each state is different of what is required with a birth mother. But yes, that is definitely something to be wary of. And like you said, you might be matched in the first trimester and paying all these medical bills, but then right before she gives birth or right after, she might decide to parent, which is definitely her right to do so, but families should be wary of those things.
Okay, this is good. So be careful about doing those things. What else? Should people actually go in and tell agencies from the start, I don't want to be matched with anyone who, if they're looking for an older child, and by older, I mean born already, I don't want to be matched with a child potentially, or I don't even want to see children whose parents still have parental rights?
I guess it depends. It depends which program. So in infant, you're not able to do that, obviously. because you're matched with the birth mother. But in the older child program yes, you are definitely able to do that. If you're going through your county, that's going to be difficult because most often children will still be up for reunification, because you are only placed with children in your county if you're going through your county to foster to adopt, versus a private agency like us. We're searching for children nationwide who are legally eligible. So people should know that about themselves. Like, am I going in this to foster, or am I going in this to adopt? And if it's to adopt, then oftentimes I would say go through a private agency who is only searching for children who are legally eligible.
So I want to kind of follow up on that question. You said that you all are looking for children throughout the country. So it is possible that, let's say a family is from Maryland and want to adopt a child. You would look at their, what their requests are. We want a child who's this age, who, I don't know, I want you to talk a little bit about some of the options that families can say, I would prefer this, I would prefer not that. But if they're from Maryland, they could possibly get a child that's from Iowa or from Kansas.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, like I said, we are searching for children nationwide. So what we do, at least in our program, is our search and match specialist has access to all these different databases of children who are waiting throughout the country for their families. So what we have families do before this process is fill out a matching tool. So we have a list of different needs that we see in children: emotional needs, medical, behavior, education needs, everything. And you kind of mark off needs that you would be open to parenting, needs that you might need some more education on from us or from someone else, and then needs in children that you don't feel equipped to parent. So based on that is how we are searching for those children for you, and sending you different profiles of children that we think might be a good match for you.
So what are some of the needs? Like, give me examples.
Yeah, great question. So it really ranges. So under behavior needs, it might be, the child gets in some fights in school, or has a history of tantruming, or has a history of aggression. Maybe emotional needs, children aren't coping with their emotions, and maybe they're acting out. There might be, some diagnoses. There might be depression, anxiety. It could be more involved. It could be bipolar disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, lots of things. There could be medical needs, something small like asthma, allergies, or more involved, like they're in a wheelchair, they need help moving, they need lifetime care. It really ranges.
And race is also one of those issues that, can you tell me a little bit about how that is kind of structured, or how that question is posed?
Yeah, definitely. So we talk to families a lot about transracial and transcultural adoption. And if they feel like they are equipped and ready to do this, what does your community look like? What kind of resources do you have? Are you able to seek out different resources if need be near you? And, community members. Are you able to incorporate your child's background, culture, heritage, ethnicity, everything into your family? Because this isn't only your child's culture, now it's your whole family's culture. So that's a lot. We really try to prepare families for that and see, are you ready for this? Are you not? Do you need more education? What do you think?
That's great. So if a family says, I'm open to kids, because so often those of us who come to whatever pathway to parenthood as a result of infertility, our perspective is, especially if we struggle with infertility for a while, the feeling is, I just want a baby. I just want to bring home a child. I'm ready to move forward with, a child in my family. Do you caution families to think very seriously about those decisions? Because you brought up a lot of important issues that could potentially impact a successful match.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we do talk with families openly and honestly about it. And we really try to, like I said, delve into what their community looks like, what their typical, Sunday dinner looks like, or their community groups, places of worship, everything like that. Will your child feel represented? And we definitely do a lot of trainings throughout the year on this as well. Because, even if you don't have the community right now, are you able to seek out a community and really make your child feel welcome and
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important where you talk about, are you willing to change or to make
Mm-hmm.
some additions to your household culture?
Definitely.
Well, I tell you what, we are, I could talk about this forever.
I could too.
Questions, and I know I haven't even gotten through all of the questions. So I'll just say, are there any things that you would like to leave as a parting message to families who are looking at adopting right now during the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as into the future once we have hopefully emerged as from this?
I'd say one of the biggest things I want to leave people with is that there are always children in need of forever families, and kind of, now more than ever, they might be in situations right now that are dangerous and aren't, good for children. So we are really, really dedicated to finding families for these children. And so if you've ever thought about adopting, I would really encourage you to just do some research and go to different information meetings of different agencies and figure out what's best for you. And you can still apply, you can still do a lot of the process right now. So I would really encourage you, while you're home and you may have more time on your hands, to do some research and maybe start the process. Maybe this time is right for you.
Maybe this time is right for you. Well, that's a really nice, sweet, perfect way to end. I want to make sure that everyone is also aware that the Cade Foundation does provide family building grants to assist with the cost of adoption and fertility treatment for families with infertility. And for more information about that, please visit www.cadefoundation.org. And we'd be happy to support you and be happy to provide information. So thank you so much. Again, we have Ms. Molly Dunlap, who's here to talk about the effects of the COVID-19 crisis on adoption right now in the U.S., and also to share some really good, important information for families who have ever considered adoption. And it sounds like because of the ways that the information sessions and kind of the required trainings have evolved during this crisis, this may be a great time to start that process if you have a little bit more time available at home, because you can sit and do it right from your computer, right?
Definitely. And thank you so much for having me too. This was great.
Of course. And I want to also let everyone know that when we have our Race for the Family, whether it is in June or at another rescheduled date, Barker is one of our vendors. So Molly will actually be at the race. You can meet her and talk with her about the services provided by Barker. And I will add, they work with public and private adoption. So they work with families who are looking at foster care, as well as families who are looking at private adoption. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow when we will have another Coffee with Cade for the COVID-19 series, where we will talk with Reverend Tamala Wilson, and she will talk about the impact of the crisis on faith and fertility, and she will provide some words of encouragement to families who are really at a time of crisis with regard to their family building. You know, some people I've heard have felt like they missed their chance because all this happened, when they were at a point where they were ready to move forward. So I think that for those of you who may need a word of encouragement, Reverend Wilson is fantastic. She is on staff with the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. So we'll see you here 12 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you again, Molly.
Thank you.
And if you have questions for Molly, please feel free to leave them right at this link, and we'll make sure that she gets the question and that she's able to follow up with you. Have a great afternoon, Molly. Hold the line. Great. Molly, thank you